Good evening, New Zealand and the world. Lucas Lawman's Kiwi Voice. Here we are at the McFaddens Centre in St Albans, Christchurch Central for Matt King's Christchurch Community Meeting. So it's filling up pretty quickly in behind us. It is completely sold out or booked out. You have to get your tickets online. Nice venue, really keen to hear what he has to say and also what questions are going to be asked and how they are going to be answered. There's all of that. Have shook hands with the man as we've walked in, and we will get up the front and set it up, and we're going to go for a live, and we will curate that after, which will go with this intro. So let's get into it.
We can turn it around. A small party can turn it around as long as you've got people in there with a conscience that believe in our basic human rights and are willing to fight. So that's us, and we can do it. So there is hope. It's not a lost cause. It's just going to have to be a lot of people around the country party voting for us and then me winning my seat. But I absolutely, the feedback I'm getting all around the country from lots and lots of people from all over the political spectrum is I cannot vote for my party that I've supported all my life.
Matt, Peter Gunn here. Look, in 2019, our Prime Minister stood up at a conference held by Bill and Melinda Gates in New York and stated that she has implemented most of the provisions of the Agenda 2030. Could you comment on that and what you propose to do, please?
Yeah, okay, so that's what I talked about before about these overseas organisations. An incoming government can just pull out of whatever. If we sign a contract with overseas organisations, an incoming government can just pull out. Just like we can change the law. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we keep on side and we don't upset people, but if it's harmful to our country and our people, I don't want a bar of it.
Hi, just two questions. I'm Jane. Chris Luxton is... Sorry.
You've got to hold it
Chris
Luxton
is bordering Labour. How will you work with him and etc.? And the other one is... Marsden Point shutting down, what can we do about the gas fields?
Okay, so in terms of the Chris Luxton story, those guys have circled the wagons on me. Obviously, I used to be I was an MP when he was not even in Parliament. So, and now he's in there and he's calling the shots, and I'm not in the inner circle at all. I'm well and truly on the outer. I don't look. My goal is to get rid of Labour, and whatever the people decide, whatever they vote with at the next election, will work with whatever comes to it. I'm not going to say that I'm definitely going with someone else, but I just want this Labour government out. This particular Labour government. The Labour governments in the past, some of them were good, and some of the National Party, national governments were good. This Labour government is the worst government that we have ever had, hands down. So I want them gone, and whatever the country serves up as an option, we'll work with however it plays out. So in terms of, what was the other one? The Marsden Point. Okay, so to me that's a strategic asset. I can't believe that we are mothballing our only refinery. We as a country are importing coal from Indonesia. We have gas reserves. We have oil off the coast of Taranaki. We just can't afford to be doing this. We're not a rich country. We have to make the use of every resource we've got. We've got to open our doors to tourism and the education of foreigners. We've got to do everything we can. So I'm a real greenie type character in terms of my belief. I'm doing the virtuous signalling solar panels on the roof thing, but it's mainly because it was going to be miles to get pipe power up to where I live. And I have a gravity-fed round pump, and I really love bush, and I look after my farm. And I just do what every other farmer around me does. But I also recognise that we need oil and gas for the foreseeable future. And it's just the reality. And if we start turning off the tap on all these different things, we're going to have people starving. We're going to have real suffering, pain and suffering. So I'm a big believer in let's be really practical about what we've got to do. We've got to look after our people, and we've got to make as much as we can from what we've got, sustainably. So the Marsden Point thing, it's unbelievable that they're doing that.
Sorry. I appreciate that you have a good chance of winning your seat up in Northland, but there's also a lot of minor parties talking about making an umbrella organization, coalition sort of thing. So I'm just wondering if you or Democracy New Zealand would consider getting into that sort of coalition kind of arrangement with some of the minor parties.
Good question. You asked me this before, and I asked it during the main session, so that everyone could hear. So yes, we're talking to other parties, and I'm keeping a very open mind about it, because I think there is people that, if we combine forces, could be good. Just getting all the minor parties together and as one umbrella party does not mean all your supporters will join. In fact, a lot of people that support me, if I join forces with one or two of the other parties, will leave me. So, and also, have you heard the term herding cats? We'll spend 6 months deciding on what the name of it is, and then another 6 months fighting over who leads it, and then fighting all the way through. The other thing I want to tell you about is that there are some serious skeletons in the closet of some of these minor parties, and I will not be naming them, but I happen to know about them, and I happen to know the media know about them, and that if I jumped on board with them, and we got some momentum up, and we got 6 weeks out from election, and the media came out with a story that I know they've got, and they just take the legs out from under me. So I would be by association gone. So I'm not going to let that happen. So for me, teaming up with someone else, if you want a marriage, and you've got to do your due diligence on it, and you want to make sure that everything's right. And so I'm meeting people every day now that wanted to jump on board Democracy NZ. Some really exciting things.
The voter integrity is what I'm worried about, because I don't believe what came out of that sausage machine is what went in. And
I hear you.
there's no way that all those rules and those farmers voted strategically to keep the bloody Greens out, and they voted for Comrade.
Yeah, okay. Look, I do have an answer to that, and I don't profess to know 100%.
The Indian voting system
Yeah.
was used here, and it is corrupt.
Look,
And
I hear you, and I'll tell you when I lost my seat, right? When you look at the history of the Northland electorate, the National MP has held the seat for 30 odd years, except for 1 year when Social Credit came in, and I think 1 year when Winston won in a by-election, right? And so it's been a blue seat. And then in the last election, the candidate for Labour got she got 17,000 votes. They have never got more than 9,000 in the history of that electorate. So where did those votes come from? And I did quite well. I increased my vote, but it wasn't quite enough. It was actually, I lost my 163 votes. 220 votes came out in Arthur Prison, and none of those buggers voted for me. So, but I'm not bitter. So anyway, what happened was, I asked around about the electoral stuff, and I said, could this happen? Could this be a dodgy result? Because people felt that. And I satisfied myself from the answers that I got from the people around that are involved in it, that I think it was a safe result. And the reason why is that we've got a lot of manual systems, we've got a lot of double checking, we've got a lot of people that are involved in it. And also, I don't think the Labour government are that well organised. They're incompetent in everything else. How could they organise this? It would be an amazing, in my own mind, I'm satisfied it was a legitimate result, although a really bad result. The man over there in the grey.
I'm sitting on the fence, but I've actually voted National all my life. But I see a huge clear tide happening next year, G23. But I look at some of the figures, and I think of Sir Robert Jones and what he achieved with the New Zealand Party, pre-MMP. They pulled in 12%, which would be 16 seats. I've been playing around with some figures, and I saw that roughly 7% of votes go to independents. I look at Tauranga, the Electoral Commission just released things today. There's 12 parties splitting the vote there. Now, if we can have a huge king tide swing. You suggest it could be 30% back. Well, I know there's another party, an Asian party, that has similar values and talk to yourself. Is there not some idea that there should be consolidation? Is there any reason why you're not possibly going to try and work in so that you work strongly with Luxem and
Yeah.
next year?
Good question, thank you. So I am talking to 2 or 3 people that you will know, and what I think will happen is the by-election will be a little bit of a watershed moment for some of the people running in it, a bit of a reality check. I think some of the people that are stepping up to the plate now will fall over, and I think by the time the next election rolls around, there'll be a joining up of forces of like-minded people. So I'm keeping that door open, and I am talking to others, because at the end of the day, if I tried to go it alone, and I could have grabbed one or two of them on board and had a win, I would be stupid. So I'm absolutely keeping an open mind about that. But I've got a shot up there which just sort of shows, some people go, oh, you're only one man, what are you going to do? They don't understand the MMP system. There's going to be, like I said, there's probably 20 or 30% of people out there that are politically homeless now. We only need 5%. We only need 5%. And I'm going to go around the country and I'm going to tell people, most of the minor parties won't crack 5% and none of them are going to win a seat. None of them are going to win a seat. I've got the opportunity to win a seat. And if enough people believe that I can win that seat and give me their vote, I can crack over 5%. And every 0.8% of a vote is an MP. And I'm going to have some really good, none of them are MPs that are going to run with me. I'll be the only former MP. But there will be people. For me, honesty is huge. Loyalty and honesty are my 2 biggest plus that I require. Honesty and loyalty. A small team, you need loyalty, you need honesty. But I also want people with good life experience, raise the family, run a business, can get on with people. And also, I want people that enjoy the ride, because you've got to enjoy the ride. So, I've got some people, exciting people lining up to want to join us. Really exciting people. I'm doing my due diligence at the moment. The most often question I get is turning up. And everyone thinks that if all the people get together, all their supporters will come and we'll get our 7% and we'll be away. That is not going to happen. And I said before the reasons why, and one of the reasons why is there's a few parties that are not going to make it to the election. I've got people that talk to me off the record every week, media people and others, and they tell me things. I used to be a policeman, I used to rely on informants. That's the way you solve crime. You form relationships with some of the crooks, and they tell you about the other crooks. And you never burn your sources. You never burn your sources. And people tell me stuff, and they go, well, we know about this person and this party has done this. And I know about it, and I go, well, from my experience, that's a suicide mission to be with them. But I'm not about to tell you that, because I'm not going to be the guy that does that. But I'm not going to go with them. And I'm not going to tell you why I'm not going to go with them. I just don't want to put bar of them. And so, just rest assured, I just want to get across the line, get into Parliament, get that Bill of Rights re-enshrined, start kicking some of this horrible legislation into the bin, and get government out of our lives, smaller government. People, if you let people do their things, it's going to be really hard to tell.
I'm curious that you said you're holding back on policy because you've spoken quite a bit about the policy tonight, but I do think the weak point in your presentation is strategy. Yes. And while you've been asked by many people here, why won't you team up with other groups? And you've explained, well, there's for want of you to term, some dodgy types in some of these groups. Yep. That doesn't quite make logical sense, because you could go out there and say, no, I'll work with these people, and these people. Why do that blanket thing? I've got one other question after that. Why won't you just declare that you would work with these particular groups? Because at the end of the day, we all probably acknowledge we don't know who to vote for, and particularly if we're unvaccinated. There is no party to vote for. But if I give my vote to you and you don't win your electorate seat, my vote is wasted. So therefore I have to make the strategic decision whether to vote for National, because they've got more likelihood of getting rid of expletive removed. So that's what I think your problem is. So explain to me why you're not being more clear about your strategy, about how in the event that you lose in Northland, you're going to get over the 5%.
Okay, so there's people, like obviously the election is end of next year. So here we are in May, and it's September, October, November next year is when the next election is. And there are so many things, water to go under the bridge between now and then. And there is people that I know that might be forming a party and announcing it very shortly. So what I want to see is I want to see what the lay of the land is next year. So all I can say to you is, when you come time to put your tick in the box, at wherever the next election might be, whether it'll be an early election or whether it's going to be the normal time, you will have the information you need. But for me now, to come out now and say I'm going to work with them and I won't work with them, the whole landscape could be different in January, February next year. Those guys could be gone, that guy could be burnt. There's a whole lot of things to go under the bridge. So what I'm doing now is I'm just introducing myself. I'm showing you sort of what some of our values. You can make a judgment for yourself. Whether you think you might listen to me again or whether you might to kick me to the curb, that's fine. I just can't give you that information now because I'm going to reassess things later. So I mean, I might end up teaming up with Carl Bromley in the back there. I'm talking to him tomorrow at the cafe, and we might end up forming an alliance. Or I may not, he might be one of those dodgy characters.
But with respect, you're asking people to support you and get behind you, and there's people who wanting to know how they can get on board. We're not necessarily going to push the boat out with our friends and family to get behind you unless you firm things up a wee bit more, as my suggestion to you. And my final question is to put you absolutely on the spot. What's your position on Voices for Freedom and teaming up with them? Okay, so Voices for Freedom did a fantastic job of and they funded the Queen and their funders. They did some great work with the legal challenges. I met all three ladies that run it, and I get on really well with them. I don't know what they're going to do at the moment. I don't know what's going to happen with them. But they are a force to be reckoned with. But then, like I say, we've got to see what happens further down the track, and we see what people have got on the table at the time, and we get closer to the election, and then you'll be able to decide. Okay, so I'm not going to stand here now and say I'm going to go with this person or I'm going to go with that person. I'm not going to do that now. It's too early in the piece for me to do that, and I do not want to commit to it.
I just want to say thank you so much. I'm over here.
Yeah, gotcha. I see that.
I just want to say thank you very much for coming down south and travelling around. We really appreciate that. My question for you is the Bill of Rights.
Yes.
So my understanding is dodgy old Helen Clark went and chucked a clause in there. I think it might have been late 90s or whenever her term was, which means that the Bill of Rights can be overturned or overruled or however you want to put it, under a pandemic or such. So I want to know, you said before that we can change and alter anything that's been brought in by the previous government, but can we go back to something like the Bill of Rights when that amendment's been added such a long time ago and have that removed?
Yes, absolutely. And that's what I propose to do, is take that line out, that clause out, so that it can't be overruled. So that's one of the first things you do. You strengthen it and take that clause out. But ultimately, in the short to medium term, the only way we can get ourselves out of this bind in the short to medium term is to have people holding the balance of power that have a conscience, that are not wanting to let it happen. That's the short to medium term answer. The long term answer is come up with, some sort of framework, a constitution, a Bill of Rights framework that everyone agrees to. That's going to be, it's a 10-year project. There'll be referendum. The whole country it'll have to be a massive thing. But I deal with what's in front of me and what my kids and my grandkids are going to be facing, and I just know that if you've got good people in Parliament, we can do it. We can get back on track, and that's where I come into it. If I can get back in, the MPs and the party that's in power will come to me, and I'll sit around the table, and we'll get our country back. Absolutely.
To add to that, I mean, what people probably don't realise is that in 2016-17, there was an add into the Health Act which enshrined some of those Bill of Rights principles, and it says this is how we're going to manage infectious diseases. And they said, hey, the Health Act is 1956, it's outdated. It had been amended in 2016 and 17, and they just threw it out.
Because enshrining that's a word that you can't do in this country with the way our system works. There's nothing sacred. And that's what I found when I went into Parliament. It's really only people agreeing to play by the rules and not underarm bowl. And both parties respected the Electoral Act and would not change legislation in the Electoral Act unless 75% of the House agreed to it. And that was just an agreement. That was just, hey, we're playing by the rules, we're not going to underarm bowl. Those rules have all been thrown out. It's like, we'll do whatever we like with one extra vote and go to hell. And
I think it's really wise with it not to get involved with the smaller parties. They've been around for a number of years and haven't got past the 1%, a lot of them. And so to hold back and see what happens, I think is really wise. I'm really concerned about the National Party being so like the Labour Party. I've spoken to a lot of business people and they think Chris Luxon's great. I don't think they've really been listening to him and what he really stands for. And so that concerns me. And the other thing is, what are your thoughts about the economy and how we're going to get it back?
Okay, so I think when you spend $50 million on a feasibility study for a bike ramp across the Harbour Bridge, that's incredible. That blows my mind. $100 million on a ghost train from Hamilton to Auckland. We just cannot afford to spend money like that. And it's all borrowed money and printed money. So I believe we've got some hard times coming. And I think we need to throw open the doors to how we can earn income. We need to try and let people get back on track, start their businesses again, and get out of the regulation. There's a whole lot of things we can do. This government has spent their whole 2 terms crushing and burning and stopping stuff. I mean, like for example, live exports. I'm a farmer, and I used to get a prime price for my animals that I used to live export, and they just canned it because one boat sunk in a bad storm. And I just look at it and I go, we've just got to be. We're not a rich country, and we've got to be doing everything we can to earn a dollar. And we need to get out of the mindset that God was money. I remember one of the finance ministers telling me every year, every budget, they have $1 to $2 billion to play with. So most of it's committed, wages and health and education, everything's committed. So they have $1 to $2 billion at the most to allocate around the edges to try and stop, put the fingers in the dike, keep things going. And so the idea that we've got $6 billion at this budget is just dreaming. It's not realistic. I liken it to this. The parents went away for the weekend and the kids had a massive party. And they've trashed the house and they've upset the neighbours. And now it's time for the parents to come back, fix the house up, make amends with the neighbours, and start paying the mortgage. And we've been going here 2 hours now. If you guys have been really good. And Carl Robbie's really kept quiet in the background. We'll have to talk to him tomorrow. I just want to say that anyone that wants to ask questions, I can talk to you after, because I'm just conscious it's 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night. I can go all night, But I'm just really encouraged by the people in this room, the intellect that's in this room, the thinking people in this room, the critical thinking, and just the lovely faces. And I realise that you're all here because you care about the country. and you all you care about your family, and you just we want our country back. So I really appreciate you turning up today and coming along, and if I made an impression on you, I'm hoping it's a good one, that I'm a genuine guy, I'm fighting a good fight. Whether you vote for me or not, I'd like your support. Thanks very much.
Alrighty fam, so the evening has indeed come to an end. So we've gone almost 2 hours. Questions were continuing to come, as Matt said at the end there. He could have kept going. Questions from all different types, all different angles. Nice environment. Hope you've enjoyed the coverage. I enjoyed bringing it to you, sitting down the front of the auditorium here, trying to get the best angles. Hope you enjoyed that. The highlights. Good vibe. Probably 150 to 200 people here, which is nice. So yeah, if that's the kind of thing you're into, head to democracynz.org, I believe it is, but just Google Democracy NZ, it'll come up, or Matt King on Facebook. And yeah, stay safe, stay free everyone, and we'll see you again real soon.